Hey there, guys. All right, today we are back with some more History Matters, and this time we are asking ourselves the question of why were the Yugoslav partisans so effective? Short animated documentary. Before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. Would love to join the Discord. Follow me over Twitch, and please do go check out the two gaming channels here on YouTube. One is for edited content, and then the other is for the stream VODs. So, with all that said, nothing else to say. I don't really have any guesses as to why the Yugoslav partisans were so effective. Maybe they just have a culture of being feisty fighters, under the rule of the Ottomans for a couple centuries. They were probably resisting that for a good bit. Then you had the Austro-Hungarian Empire resisting that. And now you got the damn Germans coming in, Germans and Italians coming in. Maybe it's also that. I don't know. Let's dive in.
During the Second World War, there were many resistance movements across Europe who refused to accept their country's occupations. The most famous is, of course, the French resistance, but one resistance movement which doesn't get too much attention is the Yugoslav one. It was a movement which fought for Yugoslav independence and inflicted major damage on their occupiers. Yugoslavia was also one of the only nations in the war to mostly liberate themselves. This raises the question, why were they so effective? In a twist of events, the Yugoslav resistance was fractured, and so to get a better view of things, some backstory is necessary. By the time the war started, Yugoslavia was a relatively new country, having been created after World War I and the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It was a multi-ethnic kingdom whose government was, for the most part, dominated by Serbians, who were the largest ethnic group. Ethnic tensions were a grave concern to the ruling government and the monarch, King Peter II, who wasn't of age yet, and so Yugoslavia was governed by a regent, Prince Paul. Paul was growing ever more concerned about Germany, and particularly Italy, who had designs on Yugoslavian land and also had just eaten Albania. Paul wanted to stay neutral and protect Yugoslavian independence, but his government was largely pro-ally. By early 1941, the Allies weren't exactly doing well, and so Paul agreed to sign the Tripartite Pact, but as a neutral nation. The Yugoslav people and many in the military were fiercely anti-German, and so this action was followed by protests, and in late March, Paul was ousted in a coup. This coup placed Peter in charge with an even more pro-British government, and roughly 2 weeks later, the Axis invaded and swiftly conquered the country. It was then divided between the Axis powers like this. This part here was called the independent state of Croatia because it was a puppet state run by Croats. In fact, it was run by a fascist group called the Ustaše, who promptly carried out ethnic cleansing in its new territories. Whilst the country itself had formally surrendered, this didn't mean that everyone who lived there accepted it. So there were two main groups of resistors. The first were the Chetniks, which was a Serbian royalist movement led by Draža Mihailović. The second were the most famous, the Partisans, who were a multi-ethnic communist movement led by Josip Broz Tito, which was founded after
Tito!
Germany invaded the USSR. At first, the two groups worked together to sabotage the Axis, but ideological differences eroded away any trust that they had. The Chetniks, who were basically the remnants of the Yugoslav army, took the role of selective collaboration, and their plan was to wait for the Allies to come to their aid. This led to them simply waiting for the Axis to leave, and given their hostility to the communists, saw them eventually receive material aid from Italy. As for the communist partisans, they'd have sooner died than collaborate, and were based around a core of veterans from the Spanish Civil War. They conducted sabotage, raided supplies, attacked soldiers, and routinely liberated areas from the Axis. In fact, the partisans were such a problem that the Axis had to maintain over 100,000 soldiers in Yugoslavia to deal with them.
Damn!
Resistance continued to grow throughout the war, and in 1943 the Allies recognised the partisans as the legitimate resistance and not the Chetniks. By this point, the partisans had over 250,000 people in its service. One reason for this was that it was a Yugoslav movement, not a Serbian one, and also because Tito gave amnesty several times to those who had supported the Chetniks or the Axis, which boosted the partisans greatly. And this is ultimately what led to their success. The people of Yugoslavia had disliked the Germans and the ruling Serbian classes before the war, and the Yugoslav communists were neither. Tito was a clever leader who knew how to get people on board with a unified vision of the future. They were also based in the mountainous regions of Yugoslavia, from which they were extremely hard to dislodge. And it was all of these things combined which made them so effective and ultimately led to Yugoslavia being a constant thorn in the Axis side. I hope you enjoyed this episode.
And that was why the Yugoslav partisans were so effective. A short animated documentary. I was entirely wrong. It was Tito that essentially allowed them to be so effective. A united leader, or a unifying leadership, common ground, common goal, mountains, experienced soldiers, etc., etc. Yeah, this was a good video. I liked the amount of contextual information sprinkled throughout here. They didn't go too far away from the goal of the video. And it didn't feel like they were rattling off information. This felt really well paced. I've got nothing to yap about any further. No further yap to do. I feel like I should be saying something more, but nothing's coming to my mind. This is just a good video. I hope you guys enjoyed as well. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.